appreciate that introduction, John. I owe you $20. Make sure I give you that 20 on the way out. The Olympic theme, I like that. It's pretty good. I've been binging on Olympics late at night, you know, on my app or whatever. I do have two Olympic kind of stories for you. One, I know everybody's excited about Mondo Duplantis. By show of hands, how many of you have ever heard of the name, know the name Mondo Duplantis? Okay, so that's about 3/4 of the room. So Mondo Duplantis just won his second gold medal in his second Olympics. He's from Lafayette, Louisiana, went to Lafayette High, jumped 1 year as a pole vaulter for LSU, and then after 1 year in college went pro. Mondo Duplantis literally has a condo on Acadian right there across from the LSU Lakes. His brother Antoine Duplantis is the all-time hits leader for LSU baseball, greatest hitter, you know, as far as number of hits in LSU baseball history. If Mondo were to be in this room, you wouldn't know who he was, you know, unless he had the gold medal around his neck, you know. But if he were to walk down the streets of anywhere in Europe, he's a rock star. But you know, he competes under the Swedish flag. So, you know, he's not going to be on your Wheaties box. He's going to be on whatever Wheaties is in Swedish. But he is a rock star. He is their greatest athlete. And for folks that are confused, well, why does he compete under the Swedish flag? Why does he not compete under the U.S. flag? Because, I mean, he was born here. He went, you know, high school, all that, family's from Lafayette. But it's simple. His mom and dad met at LSU. They were both great track athletes. His dad was a pole vaulter. His mom was a heptathlete, which is like the decathlon except a couple less events. And his mom is from Sweden. And she came to LSU to go to college. They met in college. They married. They had a number of kids. They're kind of like the flying Lowendas and you know, acrobats and stuff with the Ringling Brothers and like all of them are pole vaulters. Even the ones that really aren't are. You know, Antoine was a great pole vaulter, but he chose to play baseball in college. But he's had a brother and a sister that were pole vaulters at LSU outside of Mondo. So anyway, his parents get married. They have a number of kids. Well, when Mondo is pole vaulting in his backyard, they literally had a pole vault pit in their backyard right on the side of their home in Lafayette, still there to this day. You drive by their house, there's a pole vault pit right there in their front yard. And you know, he's 15 years old, he's a prodigy. You know, he's one of the greatest pole vaulters. I mean, he's the greatest at his age, and he's one of the best pole vaulters in the world at 14, 15 years old. And so the United States, though, had a policy that said you couldn't compete internationally until you were like 17 years old. So he wanted to do it now. And Sweden said, yeah, sure, come on. And so he was able to compete like 2 years earlier internationally for Sweden. And then the other thing is that the United States weren't going to let, his father was his coach, and they wanted the national coach to be his coach. And they were like, well, no, we want my dad to be my coach. Sweden was like, sure, yeah, you know. And then the other thing is that, you know, once you do that, you know, one of the main reasons too is because the United States has Olympic trials. So that means that in order to make it to the Olympics, you have to participate in the Olympic trials. So that means the top, you know, 3 pole vaulters in the United States who minimally qualify with the international rule, they go to the Olympics. Well, if you have a bad day, you show up, you're sick, you sprain your ankle, whatever, you have one bad day, you can't go to the Olympics. Sweden was like, we don't have that rule. You know, if you're the best in our country, you're in the Olympics. So automatic qualification, your dad gets to be your coach, you get to start competing 2 years earlier than the United States. But then once you start competing for that country, in order to switch back, like if he were to say, well, now I want to compete for the United States, he has to sit out internationally for like a year or two. I think it's at least 1 year, might even be 2. So he couldn't compete internationally for a year. Of course, he's not going to do that. Guy makes millions of dollars as a pole vaulter in Europe and around the world. It's an amazing story. But he's a great guy, and if you saw his quote the other day, when he said when he was running down the track with the pole going for the world record, which he made the 9th time he broke the world record the other day in his final jump at the Olympics. He said it reminded him of Tiger Stadium. And it was so loud, it reminded him of an LSU football game. Because he had that experience of being in that stadium so many times and hearing the roar of the crowd, he wasn't nervous at all. In fact, it gave him energy. And so it's an amazing story. I do have one other Olympic kind of theme. So I was fortunate to play for the greatest baseball coach of all time, Skip Bertman. And Skip Bertman was the pitching coach in 1988 for the U.S. team that went to Seoul, Korea, and won the gold medal. And then later in 1996, he was the head coach in the Atlanta games. They won the bronze medal, and he was the head coach. Now, back then, you used college players. Even though he was competing against Cuba, who had professionals, and a lot of other countries that had older professionals, they were using college players up until 2000. 2000 was the first time the United States started using pros. Now, they don't send major leaguers, they send minor leaguers, but they're still pros, and obviously they're better than college players. So in 1988, Coach Bertman goes to Seoul, Korea as the assistant coach, as the pitching coach. And he has a guy by the name of Ben McDonald who's on his staff, obviously one of his pitchers and arguably the best pitcher on his staff. Had other guys like Mark Messina and Mike Messina and other great pitchers. But there was a guy by the name of Jim Abbott on that staff, okay? Now, some of you in this room have like, wait, Jim Abbott, I've heard that name. Okay, so here's who Jim Abbott is. Jim Abbott is a left-handed pitcher. He's retired now. He played a long time in the major leagues. He was born with one arm, okay? He had a nub on his right hand. He was a left-handed pitcher. He would put the glove on basically his nub, throw the pitch, and as he followed through, he had a special glove where he would slide his hand into the glove, and now he's in the fielding position, and he's ready to field his position. And then if the ball got back to him, he could flip the ball out of his glove super fast and throw it to first. The guy was a great pitcher in college, played in the Olympics, played in the major leagues, threw a no-hitter for the New York Yankees in the major leagues. I mean, the guy was an unbelievable athlete. And he played football and basketball in high school. He was an all-state football and basketball player. So I'll tell you the story. Here's the tie to the Olympics and Skip Bertman and all that. Mid-'80s, Coach Bertman's building the program at LSU. He had an assistant coach by the name of Smoke Laval. Smoke Laval, of course, later became a head coach years later. And he sends Smoke Laval on a recruiting trip to go out to the Midwest to go recruit where Jim Abbott was from. He was from the Midwest. But he sends Smoke on this recruiting trip for like a week and a half to go see all these different players that they had heard about. And he wanted to go lay eyes on them to see if they were good enough to offer a scholarship to come to LSU. So he comes back from his week and a half long trip, comes back to the office, and they're going through the lists. And Skip's sitting there and he says, all right, Smoke, what do you got here? Let's go through this, this guy. You got Ron Rantz. What do you think of Ron Rantz? And Smoke would say, hey, he's all right. He's okay. I like this guy. He's pretty tall. He's got, he's pretty good. He's 6'2", and, he's pretty good. And they would go through the list, and he would make his comments, and Skip would listen and all that. So they get to Jim Abbott, and Skip goes, all right, what about this guy, Abbott? What do you think about Abbott? And Smoke goes, hey, this guy, I really like this guy. I mean, he's 6'3", he's left-handed, he's all-state in 3 sports in high school, he's a heck of a pitcher. I mean, he throws the ball 90, 92 miles an hour with a great cutter, but there's one problem. And Skip goes, ooh, Smoke, I mean, it sounds great. I mean, what are you talking about? There's a problem. Doesn't sound like a problem to me. Guy sounds like a dude. And he goes, well, he's only got one hand. And Skip takes a drag of his hat of Tampa, and he goes, Smoke, listen, here's the deal. It's a prerequisite if they're going to play baseball at LSU that they have 2 hands. So let's go to the next guy. And Jim Abbott ended up going to, I think, Michigan and became a great player for them. But the irony is that Skip coached him in the Olympics in 1988, but he passed on him out of high school. But anyway, so there you go. There's my Olympic tie for you. It's my honor to be here to speak to the Rotary. I didn't realize we were getting education at the largest Rotary in the state, and of course, top 10 in the world. So that's pretty impressive. And I want to tell you a little bit about what I do. I was fortunate to learn and play under Coach Skip Bertman back in the early 90s. Was on 2 national championship teams. Dipped my big toe in the minor league baseball waters. That didn't go so well based on lack of strikes and injuries. And so then about the late 90s, I decided, what am I going to do? And I've been in television and sports talk radio and all that kind of stuff ever since. And all those experiences and all, starting the Jumbo Sports Network and broadcasting 25 plus years, college baseball, led me to, in 2016, I was chosen to be the CEO of the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame Foundation. Now, show of hands, and be honest, it's okay. How many people have ever been to the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame in Natchitoches? Show of hands, okay? Appreciate you. So that's not a lot of hands. Love to come back next year and see more hands, right? But I was like you. Before going for my interview, where there was like 40-something, and we narrowed it down to, 4 of us. They flew us all in from all over. And before I ever went for that final interview, I had never been in the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame Museum. I had never been to a Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame induction weekend. I didn't know much about it other than the fact that I knew it was there. I knew where it was. I knew that every summer they inducted, greats, but I didn't know much about it. So I'm here to give you a little Reader's Digest version of it, okay? The Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame is located in Natchitoches, okay, the oldest settlement in Louisiana Purchase. We all know that from school. That was one of the few things I learned. The museum itself, and I get this all the time, why is the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame in Natchitoches? Why isn't it in New Orleans? Why isn't it in Baton Rouge? Why isn't it on LSU's campus? Whatever the case may be. Well, the answer is this. In the late 50s, every newspaper in the state of Louisiana, every little town, Bunkie had a newspaper, Springfield had a newspaper, every town had a newspaper. And every newspaper had at least one sports writer, and some had more than one. And so think about that, how many sports writers there must have been in the late 50s when every town had a newspaper, because that's how people found out what was going on in the world. It wasn't via radio or TV back then. So what happened is that they got together in the late 50s, these sports writers, on an annual basis, and they said, hey, at one of their annual conventions or meetings, and said, hey, why don't we start a Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame? And so they did. For 15 years, they basically had a banquet, in New Orleans or Baton Rouge or Lafayette. They'd rotate it, and they'd have one night. They'd honor 8, 9 people. They'd have a canvas painting of them. We got all these greats, and they would be in the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame. Now, 15 years they did that. Well, about the late 60s, early 70s, they started talking like, hey, we need a place. We'd love to have a place where we can have a Hall of Fame and display things and all that. And I don't know the process, but I know that the big dogs passed. The big cities and the obvious options weren't really an option. Northwestern States said, we'll do it. And so that's how Natchitoches in the early 70s started housing the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame, because the Prather Coliseum, their basketball arena in Natchitoches, down the hallways of it and all that, started displaying stuff. They started having their inductions every year there. And that continued to this day. And so for 30 years, they were in Prather Coliseum, the basketball arena in Northwestern State. In the meantime, they were like, well, we want our own building. We want a museum. We want to do more. But nobody had the money. And they danced with some casinos in the early 2000s up in Shreveport when that was really popping off. They did the banquet for a couple years at Horseshoe Casino. They thought maybe Shreveport would sort of get on board, and it didn't. At the end of the day, after the 2-year dance, Shreveport said, we'll give you this plot of land downtown Shreveport for $1 a year for a 100-year lease, but that's it. And they're like, well, that's generous, appreciate it, there's no building on it. And they didn't have the $9 million or whatever to build it. So they were back to square one. We're back in Natchitoches. Guess that's where we're always going to be. Don't really know what's going to happen. Well, Katrina happened. And FEMA money came pouring into the state of Louisiana, and some of that money went to tourism. And it went to the state capitol. They had to spread it around the state and promote tourism for Louisiana, let the world know that we're open for business. And so that's how North Louisiana got manna from heaven that they never would have gotten. And all of a sudden, bam, North Louisiana politicians are saying, in 06 and 07, let's not put all of our eggs in the New Orleans basket. Let's not just put every dime in the rebuild in New Orleans. Just sprinkle some in North Louisiana just in case we need to rely on North Louisiana tourism a little more. And so that's how they had this money. And in 2012, 2013, Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame Museum opened, and you see the ribbon cutting going on right there. Jay Darden was, at the time, that's Shaquille O'Neal in the back. He was part of that induction class. So that was in 2013. So the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame Museum is there. You see how far we've come. This was 2011, prior to the museum. That picture could easily be 1978 or something like that, right? That's what the Hall of Fame used to look like in 2011. Show you a picture of where we've kind of come now. This is 2023, right? And you see they've all got Hall of Fame jackets. That's something that we started doing. In that picture, you see Eli Manning, Paul Maneri from Baton Rouge. You had M.L. Woodruff in that class, Parkview Baptist legend, Paul Byrd, and many, many others. But that's what a Hall of Fame class looks like now. This was 2024. You see Simone Augustus all the way on the left, and many other greats, jockeys and coaches, and Frank Monica from Laplace over there. That was the 2024 class. You saw a guy by the name of Drew Brees, isn't in that picture? We're not going to talk about that. All right, he sent a video, but whatever. All right, so what do we do? So the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame, obviously with our foundation, we are the financial arm of the museum. So the museum was built on FEMA dollars. The lights and 2.5 employees over there are paid for by the state of Louisiana, lieutenant governors, the pot, but everything else that happens is the foundation's responsibility. So obviously the big thing we do is we have 7 events over 3 days, doing all the inductions in the summer. We have fundraisers and events all around the state throughout the year. We spend money with Lamar advertising. We're going to do, put some billboards up and things like that on I-49, which is coming in 2 weeks. And, there's a lot of things like that we do to kind of promote the Hall of Fame and let people know about it. You see right there, just pictures on the left from one of our celebrity golf tournaments we do every fall and spring. We do a golf tournament. And just to show you a little bit, this is just a little quick 30 seconds on it.
Each and every summer, the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame comes to life with the Hall of Fame induction weekend. With parties and festivities all weekend long, we celebrate the Hall of Famers, and this year's no different. Make your plans June 20th through 22nd to be there to see Drew Brees, Daniel Cormier, Frank Monica, Simone Augustus, and many others. Go to lasportshall.com and get your tickets now.
So each and every summer, generally the last weekend in June, and the reason they choose the summer is because it's the slowest sports time of the year. Baseball's over, football's over, there's that void in the middle. We don't have a major league team in Louisiana, so there's like a few weeks there before football starts and, covering and all that in August, where sports writers and the whole sports world's sort of slow. So that's why we have the induction. It makes it easier for everyone to be able to attend, okay? I told you about our celebrity golf tournaments, which are open to the public. So if you're golfers or anything like that, individuals, teams, look for that information. We're working on that now for the fall. We generally do one celebrity golf tournament in Baton Rouge, if not annually, every other year. We've done other events, like we did a world premiere of the Skip Burtman Hold the Rope documentary. Friday night fights, it's a fundraiser. That's a whole long story. We raised a bunch of money for charity, doing some celebrity boxing. We also just did an event called Champions of the Diamond with Roger Clemens and all sorts of other greats from Louisiana. This was this past January. And of course, we couldn't do it without the Bengal Bells and all that, who did a wonderful job helping us with all those great events. LeBear's is a great partner as well, and they always kind of help us. Anything locally, we usually do it there. Future plans for our museum: if you'll go to the museum over the next probably a month, year and a half to 2 years, you're going to see a lot of upgrades. Believe it or not, it's already been 11, 12 years since the museum was built. It's already time to start doing things. And so you can kind of see a little before and after. You said Kim Mulkey kind of display there. That was before, after. We're going to have different flooring, some lighting, some video boards above, just kind of give it a fresh look. That's upstairs. That's another angle from what you'll kind of see down. That's what it looks like now, and then that's what you'll see what it looks like in the future. I think we went past, there's down in the lobby area, kind of when you walk in right there, that's what it looks like now. We're going to be putting up what we call like this big fin display. Actually, this is just kind of a placeholder. It's what we're going to do real quick on this one sign right there. It's really going to be neat. We're going to do smallest to tallest. We're going to have about 12 Hall of Fame. We're going to start with our smallest, kind of ramp them up with our jockey all the way up to Shaq and kind of everywhere in between, kind of picking 12 of our greats. That was sort of a collage we did just to kind of get an idea of what we were thinking, but it's going to be more stacked, and it'll be neat. So we've got to have a gift shop we're adding. Believe it or not, we're a museum without a gift shop. That was prior to my doing, and that's been quite the battle with the state to get them to approve it. We appreciate them finally allowing us. So there's a lot of things that are going to be happening over the next year and a half or two to freshen up the museum. It's open on Tuesday through Saturday from 10 to 4:30 p.m. It's 2.5 hours from the Mississippi River Bridge right here to Natchitoches. Believe me, do it all the time. And so it's definitely, Natchitoches is an unbelievable, great little city to go spend the day in or a weekend. It's got a bed and breakfast every 10 feet, it seems. And beautiful location right on the Cane River, which is a lake, kind of an oxbow lake or whatever. It's kind of like False River. It's not. I mean, it's we do all that in Louisiana. We just come up with our own names and things. So anyway, that's my year-round day job. Grayson McDonald, give a wave. Grayson is my assistant right there. She grinds on everything we do with the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame. Been with me for 4 or 5 years. Now we'll talk about a passion play. The Baton Rouge Rougarou. By show of hands, how many people have ever heard of the Baton Rouge Rougarou in this room? All right, let's go. We're doing some things, Casey. We're doing some things. So the Baton Rouge Rougarou is a summer collegiate wood bat baseball team. So think minor league baseball, but with college players. Literally, if you've ever been to a minor league baseball game, that's what it's going to be like. It's like watching Bull Durham or a League of Their Own or something like that. It's a throwback to those days, but it's just college players. Every guy out there is in college and has college eligibility remaining. And the Rougarou were started in 2019 by a guy named Uri Gava, who was from Texas, who had a team in the league already. And he thought, well, Baton Rouge loves baseball. I'll put a team there. And just didn't really work out that well. And then in 2020, he didn't play because of COVID. In 2021, he sold to a gentleman from central Louisiana who had good intentions but didn't really know how to do it. And then we took over in 2022, and it's been a steady increase and gotten better and better each and every year. And this year we had a winning record. We missed out on the playoffs in some kind of convoluted way, but we had the best record of the teams in Louisiana. And we do fireworks on Friday nights. We do all sorts of special events. We have fun jumps for the kids. We have kids run the bases. We have mascots. All the things that you see at a minor league baseball game, it's what we implement over at Pete Goolsbee Field, which people ask me all the time, where is Pete Goolsbee Field? Here's my answer. You know where Catholic High plays football? Right next to that. And so it's downtown Baton Rouge as the crow flies a couple miles from the state capitol, right off the interstate, a beautiful ballpark that's been there like 70 plus years. It's got great history. It was named after a journalist who covered, the goings on in Baton Rouge back in the 40s and 50s. And so it's like when you walk up the ramp and you walk into Pete Goolsbee Field, it literally is like going back in time. And it started in 1999 with L.J. Dupuis and Breck and everybody getting together and kind of remodeling the ballpark. And each and every year there's something different that we do as far as upgrading the facility. And I appreciate everything that L.J. started and what Breck has continued to do as well with that ballpark, because it's a facility that's owned by Breck. Also, Baton Rouge Community College plays there as well during the year. So we are just simply in June and July. We play 24 home games in June and July. If we make the playoffs, we play more than that. And our league is called the Texas Collegiate League. In the state of Louisiana, there's us, the Acadiana Cane Cutters, which have been around about 14 years, and the newly formed Lake Charles Gumbo Gators that play at McNeese State University. They just completed their first year and did a great job. They're definitely a shining light of our league. And then we play teams from Texas. There's teams in College Station. There's teams in Seguin, Texas. There's teams in Victoria, Texas, which is southwest of Houston. And the league's been around about 17 years. We plan on being around a long, long time. We encourage folks to come on out to the ballpark. Let's see some other slides here that we have for you. Here's a little taste of what we have. So the Rougarou right there, we encourage you, if you didn't make it out there this year, we're already putting together our team, getting ready for next summer. Believe it or not, May 30th, 2025, we'll be here before you know it. So that's a little bit about the Rougarou. Also want to acknowledge Casey McKenzie. Casey, stand up, give a wave. Casey's our general manager. Give him a round of applause. Does a great job for the Rougarou. Hard-working guy, but I appreciate Breck and Gage and all of our great sponsors and supporters of the Rougarou. We couldn't do it without them. So at this time, if anybody has any questions or anything, yes, sir.
Can you share the criteria to get into the Sports Hall of Fame and then kind of the process of how you come up with the class?
Yeah, great question. So actually August 18th, which is right around the corner, is when we're going to select the 2025 class. That selection is done by 40 people. It's done by 35 sports writers. All of them are veteran sports writers from all over the state of Louisiana, and not just writers, right? Some of them are broadcasters and radio hosts and stuff like that. So it's a veteran panel of 35 sports writers that are members of the LSWA. And then also we have 2 former Hall of Famers. We rotate that each year. So we'll have 2 past Hall of Famers and then 3 members of our board that will be on that selection committee. And so they narrow it down from literally, in order to be just minimally considered or to even just be a thought, you have to have played 2 years of high school in Louisiana or more, 2 years of college or more, or 5 years professional. So someone like the Mannings, Eli, Peyton Manning, they all went to high school in Louisiana, they're in. Somebody like Shaquille O'Neal did 3 years at LSU, he's in. And somebody like Drew Brees did 5 years or more with the Saints, so he's in. So that's how you have to just minimally qualify, and then from there you have to obviously have a resume. And the great thing about the Hall of Fame is it's not just football, baseball, basketball. Okay, it's about all sports. I'll give you a name. How many in this room, be honest, have ever heard of the name Danielle Scott? Danielle Scott, okay? Yeah, like, you know, there you go. So like 4 or 5 people in this room have heard of the name Danielle Scott. Danielle Scott is from Woodlawn High, right here in Baton Rouge, graduated in 1989. She went to Long Beach State University, played 4 years of basketball and volleyball in Long Beach State in California. Her senior year, they won the national championship in volleyball. She won the Honda Award, which is like the Heisman Trophy of volleyball. And then she went on to be in 5 Olympics as an indoor volleyball player, and in 2002 was voted the #1 indoor volleyball player in the world as a big at the net, okay? So my point is that that's what we have in Louisiana. We have literally the greatest of the great, and you don't even know it, right? You know, like her and Mondo Duplantis could be having lunch down the street at Dearman's and no one would bother them, you know? So and then we have rodeo champions and bass fishermen and all these other sports, gymnasts and all that, all these other sports that have nothing to do with football, baseball, basketball. And so we make sure to honor them as well. They're, you know, we don't, you can't have more than 3 from any given sport in a given year. That way we don't ever have a class of 8 football players, because you could do that, you know, but we wanted to have that diversity. So, anyone else?
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
Has any soccer player ever been inducted?
Has any soccer player ever been inducted? The answer is no, but we have a couple on the ballot this year that are being considered. Believe it or not, Louisiana does have some great soccer players. Of course, they've gone elsewhere to play soccer on the East Coast mostly and all that. But we do have, I would say probably in the next 10 to 15 years, at least 3 will probably get in, because they've all won like Heisman Trophy awards in college for soccer, but at other colleges in other states. Anyone else? Yes, sir. The coach's requirement is simply an age requirement, so we do not induct any coaches until they're over the age of 60. And it's not really a requirement as much as, in order to get into the Hall of Fame, you pretty much have to have the endorsement. You can't just like go online, fill out an application and send it in. A funny story, I had a friend of mine send me it's kind of a smart ass text, when he told me when I got the job, hey, I hit 279 at New Iberia High with 10 homers my senior year. Can I get nominated? And the answer is obviously no. So you have to have the endorsement of someone valuable on that board. And obviously if you're a great coach, that's going to happen. We have a lot of great high school and college coaches in this state that are nominated. And it's a fight to get them in. And we try to put one coach, if we can, each year in the induction class, which is 8 people, because there's so many deserving coaches, whether it be high school or college. You know. Yes, sir.
2 questions.
Yep.
One is the players that you bring in with the Rougarou, how do you accommodate them? Do they stay with host families? And as a follow-up to that is, how do you select coaching staffs for the Rougarou?
So the question about the Rougarou is where do our players come from? How do we accommodate them? Our players come from mostly Texas and Louisiana, but we do have some from all over the U.S. And yes, host families is how we accommodate. We're very fortunate. 27 of our 30 players this past year when we started the summer required housing. And we found great people that opened up their homes, and most of them had a wonderful experience. They have kids, and they just love it. And all of them took at least 2, you know, because if you take 1, you can take 2, put 2 in a room type of thing. So we had host families, and then which is standard. They kind of do that all over the country, Cape Cod and elsewhere that have summer leagues, have host families. And then as far as our coaching staff, this past year our coaching staff came from Texas. Our head coach was a high school coach over in Texas, who had been 20-plus years as a high school coach, had coached in summer baseball. Unfortunately, he's not going to be back next year because he's just being away from his family is too far. And so next year, but he did a great job. We wanted to have him back, but he chose, too far. So we're on the look of a new coach, but it could be a college coach, it could be a high school coach. It's a commitment. It is a 2.5-month commitment from basically May 25th till about August 3rd. It's pretty much every day. And so that weans down your selection pretty much in a big way. So it's a difficult decision. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.